Fans like fantasy football, players like a plan. They like to know that they're playing to a script. And you feel that at the moment. It's always Rabiot's mum.
It's utterly mad.
If you're him, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine your mum doing all that sort of stuff?
You're watching Football Trending, delivered by Joe and Domino's.
I know that was then, but it could be again. Welcome to Football Trending, delivered by Joe and Domino's. I'm Reuben Pinder. Wayne Farry can't be with us today because he has to self-isolate, or maybe he's just a bit embarrassed that he said Germany would batter us. But today I'm joined by a very special guest in Andy Brassell. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Let's start with Gareth Southgate. Was that a tactical masterclass?
Yeah, it was pretty damn good, I think it's fair to say. But I've felt like he has had this plan for a while. And I know sometimes we can be a little bit insular. I've been trying to get across to people the barbs that Gareth Southgate about is too defensive, it's too cautious, you've got to let them off the leash. It's exactly the same thing that Didier Deschamps has had in France since way before the 2018 World Cup. It's something that Fernando Santos has definitely had in Portugal from Euro 2016 going on. It's just the way to win tournaments. And I feel like he has had a plan to win this tournament all along, even though obviously he's far too modest. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with these squads, is that they're so filled with attacking talent that the inclination for fans is to want to see them play attacking football. But I guess I always go back to France winning the World Cup in 2018 to reassure myself that, like, caution is kind of the best way in tournament football, and it's proving right so far because for each game he's had a plan and it's worked. We haven't conceded a goal yet.
Yeah, and I think yesterday was interesting because it's the first time really that England have looked like conceding a goal. Yeah, and that was only in a few little isolated moments as well.
Yeah. I mean, they had the Timo Werner chance, which
Havertz
brilliantly saved. Both of them brilliantly saved. That Havertz volley, and then the Muller one-on-one, which if there's a great angle of that miss where Sterling realises that he might have just ruined everything, and when he sees the miss, the relief. So yeah, that was incredible. But I mean, so defensively, as you say, England did concede a few more chances yesterday. But I just think across the board, I mean, Trippier was like a bit anonymous, but basically every England player played really well. I thought, especially like Maguire coming in from his injury, Stones and Walker, Rice and Phillips both being carded showed great discipline, I thought, as well. It was a really measured and mature performance, wasn't it? Yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The fact that fans like fantasy football, players like a plan. They like to know that they're playing to a script, and you feel that at the moment. I mean, the point you made about Jordan Pickford is a good one, actually. I mean, it's not often that you see him have a quiet match and then able to make a couple of really important saves, because he's quite jumpy character. You feel like he wants to make stuff happen all the time, which is not always a great quality for a goalkeeper. A little bit like Joe Hart in his way. His way of trying to get himself out of bad form was to make stuff happen, which is exactly the opposite that you want from a goalkeeper. So for Jordan Pickford to let the game come to him and make it happen at those moments, it makes me think what certainty there is in the squad, what sense of we know exactly what we're doing and how we're going to do it.
Absolutely. And I think one of England's star performers as well was Raheem Sterling, who, you know, before the tournament, he wasn't in good club form. He just wasn't scoring many goals for City. But Southgate started him in every game. He scored 3 goals. And I think now people are finally starting to realise why he's in the team and that he deserves a lot more respect than he was getting.
Yeah, and the goals are important, of course, especially when you've scored relatively few. But I think his all-round play, you can see the importance that he has to England. The best bits yesterday was when he got the ball and ran at Germany in quite central areas. I know people will look at what happened with the Muller chance, but if you can't see what Sterling is doing that's good for the team, you're not looking hard enough. He's having an enormous influence. And I think that level of confidence is quite important. If you think how, say, important in a different way Olivier Giroud was for France at the last World Cup, club form can just go out the window now. It really doesn't matter. And that fact that Southgate has a particular role for him, which is performing very well, quite outside the goals, I think is really important.
I said on the last show that he's kind of been playing like what the Germans might call a Raumdeuter, because he's kind of starting on the wing, but he's basically just finding space and like getting into goal-scoring opportunities, which you saw from his header against Czech Republic and his goal against Germany, they've both come from left to centre runs with Grealish kind of going on the other side. So obviously Grealish made a great impact when he came on, another brilliant performance. Obviously there's been a clamour for him to start, and people will now be demanding that he starts the next game. Do you think he's better used as an impact sub, though? Should he be used as kind of like a secret weapon? Or?
Well, it's working really well at the moment. And I think what's really important to know, it's like Bukayo Saka coming in quite unexpectedly for the third game against Czech Republic. I still think Jadon Sancho's moment will come, actually. And I think maybe it'll be in the last 20 minutes of a game to break teams open. I mean, Grealish did have that really good opening to the game against the Czech Republic, so I don't think it's reasonable to say he can't start. But whether he should, I think, is a different question. And I think Southgate has earned a bit of licence at this point. And, you know, this idea that subs coming on and doing well proves that the coach picked the wrong team in the first place. I mean, that's nonsense, isn't it?
If anything, it means he's good at making subs. And we've got 5 of them now, so you might as well just, like, you don't have to get them in the starting 11 to make sure they play. Like, you've got so much licence to bring players on, and, like, the likelihood of extra time means that...
It's really interesting how that's worked, though, isn't it, throughout the tournament, because the fact is, when you get up to 5 subs, people think, oh, it's a bit international friendly, isn't it? But actually, the way the subs have been used in this tournament generally has been absolutely fantastic and given new energy to the games.
Absolutely. What about Germany then? I find it quite difficult to pinpoint why they weren't very good. As we've said, they did have a couple of clear-cut chances, but they couldn't really, and they had like a bit more of the possession, but they weren't really that good given the quality that they've got. So what's kind of gone wrong with them?
Well, I guess really you could look at the last 3 years since the 2018 World Cup and think Jogi Löw has had a lot of time to change things and has not really. You know, this formation is the 3-4-3 is something that came together like, 10 days, 2 weeks before the Euros?
Right.
And he's had a lot of time to prep in which they've seemingly not done that much. You know, they've brought Hummels and Müller back at the last minute. And in a way, it's a little bit like Benzema coming back to France, even though from a statistical level that worked quite well for him. There was still a bedding in period. And you're thinking, well, if you knew this was happening, why didn't you do it in March? You know, give the players a bit of practice together. And I understand it's difficult and you have to cut players, especially players in their 30s, slack when you've got such an incredibly stacked calendar as football has had over the last little while. But it did seem all a bit busked. And when you look at Germany going forward, the way that Hansi Flick will do it, he will build around a midfield two of Goretzka, who's not been completely fit for this tournament, and Kimmich, who's been playing kind of halfway between the position they need him to play, right back, and the position he wants to play, which is central midfield. Yeah. When Flick's there, he'll play in central midfield, and those two who are close on and off the pitch, they'll build around them. But it seemed a bit busked. I didn't really like his substitutions at all. I didn't get the idea of sending on Emre Can to change the game.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Brought on Musiala when it was too late, despite the fact he made a massive impact against Hungary.
He threw on Sane, didn't he, towards the end as a bit of a desperate...
Yeah, exactly, when it was way too late. And they've made a lot in Germany of the fact that when the final whistle went, Löw just went off to the dressing rooms, and the member of the coaching staff, it was Sorg, who came on and sort of had a word with the players, comforted them. Obviously, Joshua Kimmich was very upset, for example. And you just didn't really feel that leadership was there. I think it's in stark contrast to the way that Gareth Southgate has led England. Yeah. And it proves you don't have to be alpha and chest beating to be a leader in international football, which is quite contrary to the way that we instinctively think England should be, or international football should be, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jogi Löw's been in charge for a very long time, about 15 years now, right? Yeah. And after the World Cup, which was pretty disastrous for Germany, I was quite surprised that he stayed on. But it's definitely a good... Obviously, we've known he's leaving for a while, but it's definitely a good time for him to move on now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a bit of a weird situation because after it came out that he was going, there was this switch from this guy hasn't got it anymore to hasn't he done some incredible things for us? You know, you feel it's reasonable to show some gratitude. So they've been stuck in terms of public opinion between these two stools of, well, he's done some incredible stuff and he did win us the World Cup, to this ain't happening.
I mean, he did win them the World Cup. That's something that we forget. They literally won the World Cup
in South America.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as a Palace fan, I do kind of empathise with that. With Hodgson leaving recently, everyone had got very frustrated with the football, but he did all right. So it's I
completely got
different scale. But,
I completely got the wrong end of that, because when I was saying about winning the World Cup in South America, I thought you were going to say about winning the playoff in Brighton when Zaha had that was same thing, really, isn't it? Enemy territory.
No, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Completely different scale, but that kind of conflicting, well, we are grateful, but that was terrible. It is a difficult place to be for fans.
The sense that you have to move on, I mean, at least they've got their straight line where they can see where they're going. And I think that's the thing. Since they've known that Hansi Flick has come in, you look at how he's changed Bayern immensely without really doing that much to the squad. I think that's something that will make you enormously confident as a German fan.
Yeah, because the quality's there in the squad.
Yeah.
So elsewhere in the round of 16, there was some brilliant football on Monday. In fact, Monday was probably the best day of tournament football I've ever seen. France going out. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
What went wrong for them?
They didn't. I think what's the amazing thing about that is if you take, say, 25 minutes out of the second half where it really clicks, that 25 minutes, they were better than anyone else in this tournament. They are better than anyone else will be in this tournament going forward, whatever happens from here. But the rest of it was a mess. I mean, it has all been pointed firmly at Didier Deschamps. I think it has to, really, in terms of too many changes. We talked about the players needing a script. They've gone through a few drafts, too many, I think.
Well, they had a plan. They had a formula that worked, right, with the World Cup when Giroud was in the team. But I guess Matuidi not being in the team anymore. Maybe
huge.
I'm not overstating his importance then, because he shored up that left side so much, allowing Griezmann to basically do whatever he wanted, right? And then Benzema coming in, Matuidi going out, it makes it a little bit more flamboyant and exciting on paper, at least, but a bit less secure.
Well, I understand why it's the right time for Benzema to come back, because, I mean, Didier Deschamps is a pragmatist, and all the off-field stuff with Benzema kind of gave him the opportunity to leave out a player who hadn't been brilliant for France before and was really difficult to fit in to an existing system. As you say, Giroud is this incredible conduit. But now we've reached this point, post-Cristiano Ronaldo, where Benzema can do a lot of the stuff that Giroud does very well. Like, he's an incredible header of the ball, he can hold it up, and he's got all the Benzema stuff that makes him
the mobility,
special,
the pace, the power,
the vision,
the
ability to spot passes, all that sort of stuff. And he's built like a boxer. It seemed like the right time to bring him back, but again, it was sprung like quite late. So you had this sense, certainly in the group games, and I was at a couple of them. I went to Hungary, France, and France, Portugal in Budapest. There was this sense of like they were recalibrating on the fly, and I accept that, you know, people say, oh, well, great players will find a way of playing together. True, but it's nice to have some time to do it. I think, and they didn't do that. And when you heard Antoine Griezmann, he came out and talked to us after the Hungary game. He talked at great length about how they were talking about it in training and they were trying to do it as they go along. And it's like, hang on, you're the world champions. Why are you reimagining the way you should play during the championship? And of course they did that again with the back three against Switzerland, which was an absolute mess. And credit to Switzerland, but if France had been playing a better team than them in the first half, they would have been buried. They would have been 2 or 3 down at half time.
Was the back three forced by injury? Well, partly it was, but then they did revert to the back four and just stuck Rabiot at left back, right? So the back three, I mean, it baffled me because the wing backs are not built for bombing up and down. Like Pavard, great player, not your typical...
He's a centre-back.
Exactly. He's a centre-back who's been playing right back for years.
Yeah.
He's a champagne version Martin Kelly, basically. But,
keep coming with these Palace references. I'm loving it.
But, like, so why did he switch to the back three?
To try and get some more width in the team, because that's what they were really lacking in those first couple of games. And Griezmann was part of that because they kind of started him out in this wide right position, cutting in, and he kept saying, I prefer it in the centre. And Deschamps, it was like a bit of a call and response from like different sides of press duties. He was going, well, yeah, the coach knows I'm best in the centre, but I trust him. And then Deschamps would go, yeah, we know he's better in the centre, okay?
Yeah.
But I think there were little inklings, I think, in the second half against Portugal and in that second half against Switzerland, that whereas like Griezmann became the key piece in halfway through Euro 2016, maybe they were moving towards Pogba being the key piece. And maybe that would be fine. Maybe that would be the way of doing it. And at its best, it looked incredible. I mean, Pogba looked unbelievable at his best moments in this tournament. And then, it's quite funny, in France, all the focus has obviously been on Mbappe because he missed the penalty, he didn't score in the tournament, he's got this contract situation with Paris Saint-Germain. But really, Pogba's kind of got away with it. No one's really talked that much about how he lost the ball in the build-up to the equaliser, and there's this huge hole in the middle of the pitch where Gavranovic sort of strolls through and scores.
Yeah, he did make that mistake. But on the whole, Pogba has been, as you say, absolutely brilliant in this tournament. Probably scored the goal of the tournament so far as well.
Which is why he had like 5 different celebrations for it.
Yeah, he had to milk it as much as he could.
I think so.
And fair enough. But and now it was all for nothing. But I mean, I reckon he could still get. He won't, but he would be in with a valid shout of winning player of the tournament, like even though they've gone out.
Yeah, I think there's something in that. He was absolutely terrific, and it is just a reminder that because of the amount of quality that France have got, and I think it goes back to England's situation with attacking players and what we're talking about with Portugal. The thing is, in a national team, people always talk about the fact that you can't go out and buy to fill a need like in club football. But the fact is, it's kind of like it's a bit like the Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant, the Hamptons 5 version. The fact is, there are a load of star players who can't have the ball all the time. And, there has to be this moment where Steph doesn't get it. There has to be this moment where Clay doesn't get it. Or in the France context, there has to be a moment where Benzema does a bit of work off the ball. There has to be a moment where Mbappe covers defensively on the left. And that is the most difficult thing. The fact that there will be these absolute mega star players, and I suppose Pogba's used to it more than he should be at Manchester United, who aren't front and centre, and that's something that is very, very difficult to deal with. And with Deschamps sort of muddying the waters in the way he led the team, I mean, he's kind of in his Jogi Löw 2018 moment now.
Yeah. In
that, like, there will be people wondering, should we move on? There's the fact that Zidane is currently free, which is definitely a thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, because of the egos and the Harlem Globetrotter sort of aspect of the France team, and how Zidane managed that so brilliantly at Real Madrid, his availability, kind of everything makes a lot of sense for him to take over.
It does. I think it should happen. I think they will not do that, and they will hold on to Deschamps. They won't win the World Cup in 2022.
Yeah, and they'll come to regret it, I think. Very briefly, why do you think Pogba is so much better for France than he is for Manchester United? Not that I think he's bad for Manchester United, but he does seem to he seems to definitely enjoy playing for France more than he enjoys playing for United.
I think he's got better players around him, which definitely helps.
Kante being quite important in that.
Yeah. Absolutely. But I think the bit between the end of the 2016 Euro and probably about 2 or 3 matches into World Cup 2018 is absolutely vital, because at Euro 2016, I remember I was sort of level with the penalty box at the end that Eder scored for the final, and in that, especially in the back half of that game, Pogba's almost a defensive midfielder is on the edge of his own box, and he's got this air of caged tiger about him. It's like, I should be closer, doing stuff. And there's a sense of frustration. That frustration doesn't stop there. It carries on. And then, when they don't play brilliantly in the group stages of 2018 World Cup, some of his teammates call him out and go, come on, man, let's have some buy-in. Look, we're all trying to win this World Cup, so you're going to have to do bits you don't like. You will get the moments of freedom. We all have to take our turn. Going back to that idea that I was talking about before, and it just clicked with him in that point, and he really bought in. I don't think there's been that sense at Manchester United of teammates around him who said, right, come on, this is what we need from you. A real leader to say, come on, this is what we need from you. And also, I don't think there's been the direction from upstairs, coaching.
Yeah,
so
no.
you think that
there's no long-term plan, is there?
Yeah, they bought him as the most expensive player in the world, and then they don't build around him. I'm not saying he's totally blameless I'm far from it, from the fact that he hasn't been absolutely stellar all the time for Manchester United. But I can understand how frustrating it is for United fans, like seeing him play for France and, look like Zidane.
Games. Yeah, just slapping goals, top bins. One last point on France. Obviously, they do have a tendency to self-destruct a bit, as we've kind of seen. Less, like they've done it to a lesser extent now than they've done in the past, but...
Just 2010 was such a good self-destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
It lives long in the memory.
They'll never top it. They'll never top it.
They won't.
But there is some off-the-field beef between the players' parents.
It's always Rabiot's mum.
Right, so
Rabiot's mum.
Let's give the viewers a little bit of context here. Rabiot's mum has history for being a bit of a troublemaker.
Veronique, she's also his agent.
His agent, right.
And he was at Manchester City when he was younger. And it didn't work out. A few people have views on her efforts there.
Right.
And then, of course, he ended up running down his contract at Paris Saint-Germain. There was a huge fracture between her and the club. And now there's been this debate between her and the family of Kylian Mbappe and
I think she said it was disgraceful that he didn't put enough power on the penalty and that she hoped that Mbappe's dad would scold him or something. It's utterly mad.
If you're him, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine your mum doing all that sort of stuff?
I know.
You just need Judy Murray, really, don't you?
Yeah, no, that's the ultimate mum agent.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just absolutely baffling.
But the thing is, none of these things are even vaguely important. All these things, like the supposed training ground beef between Mbappe and Giroud, and the fact that when France got to Bucharest, their hotel was on a main road, and the players complained about it. All that stuff does not even slightly matter if they don't concede that equaliser.
Yeah, of course.
That very presentable equaliser.
Of course.
So, and now, obviously, all these stories are queued up to filter out.
Yeah, as you say, like, they've gone out, so now we're looking for, like, hyper analysis. But
I mean, it is hard to explain, so you need to look for something, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's very true. So, in the quarterfinals, England will play Ukraine. Ukraine.
I know you can't rub your hands because you're holding that, so I'll do it for you.
It's very exciting.
It's doable.
Oh, it's of course
very doable.
We're beating Germany. We can beat anyone. I mean, but Ukraine are in the quarters for a reason. Yeah. Every team that's made it this far has played well. They deserve their place there. What problems are England going to encounter when they play the Ukraine? Do you think Southgate will change his plan for this?
I feel they're the luckiest team to be in the quarters.
I mean, the woodwork did take a battering in that Sweden game, didn't it?
Yeah, and like it's such a shame not to see Emil Forsberg there because he was amazing. You're talking about players of the tournament. I mean, he's in the conversation.
He's got 4 goals now, hasn't he? Well, I mean, they're knocked out, but he's
and it could have been a few more.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean,
that would have been full like Milan Barros Euro 2004, like him finishing top scorer in the Euros. And he could have 6, couldn't he?
Yeah, it's mad.
But I think when you look at Ukraine, they completely choked in the last group game against Austria. They were really poor in that. And so they were the most fortunate of the third place qualifiers to get in. Then they had the Danielson sending off that went for them and really changed the game at Hampden. I think the idea of Ukraine, especially when you see Shevchenko running up and down the touchline, is more attractive than the reality. And, I think we can see the difference between qualifying and the actual tournament. Because in qualifying, they were really good. They beat Portugal, they got 4 points off them overall. They've drawn away at France in World Cup qualifying, and they did have that massive COVID-related blip in terms of their preparation for this tournament. They went to France and lost 7-1 in the Nations League in autumn because, at that point they had their goalkeeping coach, Alexander Shovkovsky's 44 on the subs bench because they were that short of players.
Chelsea did that with Czech, didn't they, last season?
Yeah, I mean, look, great goalkeeper in his day. Don't get me wrong. The issues I think they've got, slight lack of experience. When you don't look at Stepanenko and Yarmolenko, who's had a good tournament. I think the big issue is Ruslan Malinovsky has not really taken off so far this tournament. Mm-hmm. I mean, he came on yesterday and was okay, but I feel that especially if from a Ukraine perspective, especially if you're looking at unlocking the door with England, he had an amazing end of the season with Atalanta. He needs to get back to that form, and we've not really seen that much of it so far. So those are a few of the reasons, apart from confidence in England, that I feel that England should be able to put this away quite easily. I don't think Southgate would change a thing. I don't think he should change a thing. The style doesn't matter. It's just about winning.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it's a buy into the semis, lads.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry.
You're my spokesman now.
OK, so before we go, very brief predictions for the quarterfinals. Italy, Belgium. It's going to be a good game.
I reckon Belgium.
You reckon?
Yeah, I reckon Belgium. And I'm more in on Italy than I was before the Austria game, actually, because the fact they can win in a different way really appeals to me.
It was a bit too... It almost looked a bit too easy for them, right? And now they've had a test and they've come through that. So.
Yeah, that they sort of really ground it out. But I just feel that you could argue that Belgium have got the best goalkeeper and the best centre-forward in the tournament. And they've won games in so many different ways so far.
They will be without De Bruyne and Hazard, though, won't they?
Yeah, they will, but...
Hazard's less of a miss, I think.
That was the case at the start. Yeah, he's not even the best Hazard anymore.
No, exactly.
It turns out.
OK, so Belgium, Spain and Switzerland. Spain have really come into their own recently. 10 goals in 2 games after really struggling to score beforehand. Bizarre.
Yeah, I think Spain have this. I mean, I just want more beautiful chaos because, like, before the start of the tournament, you've no idea where the goals are coming from. You've no idea what the best 11 is.
Yeah, because
Luis Enrique doesn't have an idea what the best 11 is. And then all of a sudden, this is very, very entertaining.
It's so much fun, isn't it?
What's amazing as well, after those first 2 games, when people say, oh, yeah, they only ever pass it sideways. I mean, that was always nonsense because they created way enough chances to win those first 2 games.
Yeah.
They just didn't have a reliable finish. They probably still don't have a reliable finisher. They have a lot of semi-reliable finishers who are getting it done between them.
I'm surprised that Moreno hasn't taken Morata's place up top, but I guess he's just trusting in that Morata will get that goal, which he's got now, and get there, and therefore get some more confidence. But, England, Ukraine, we've been over. England are going to win that. Will we look very silly if we don't, but we will. And Denmark, Czech Republic. That's going to be a good tie, I think. Denmark's sort of transformation from obviously the tragedy in their first game, or near tragedy, to then going through with 3 points and playing some brilliant football against Wales. They look really good.
Yeah, they do. And I think there's potential for them to get even better. They've always had a good spine going into this tournament. But I think as well as we've talked a lot about the emotional shock of them losing Eriksen, I think you do have to look at that, of course. But they've also lost their best player, which is big. You know? They've got some really interesting talent there. I think the Czechs have got the edge on them. Because
really?
I had a feeling before the tournament, and fortunately a lot of what I say is recorded, so you can go back and look, and I actually did say it.
Yeah.
I thought the Czechs might sneak into second past Croatia in the England group. They didn't, but they were really impressive, I thought. If we're talking about Ukraine being like the least impressive of the third place qualifiers, I think the Czechs are pretty much the most. They were really good. They were even good against England at Wembley, I thought, in the game they lost. And the way they managed to adapt when the Netherlands went down a man, I thought that was really impressive.
They really punished them for that, didn't they?
Yeah,
sometimes it can be very difficult to play against 10 men, but for them it was just like so much easier.
And to totally switch emphasis as well. And they did that. Obviously, the fact that they've got that Slavia Prague plus West Ham ex-Slavia Prague spine, I think is quite helpful. I think Vaclik, again, has had a quiet season at Sevilla where he's no longer number 1, but a very, very good tournament. Patrick Schick, what he's doing speaks for itself. And if I was Leverkusen, I might be half thinking, oh, come on, make a massive offer for him. Make a massive offer for him. Because on paper, he's got the lot. You know, he's someone who can be a target man. He can create something from nothing, as we saw in the Scotland game. You know, there were some Bergkamp comparisons in his early days at Sampdoria.
He's a complete forward in every sense, isn't he?
Yeah. If only he could be that every week, I suppose is the thing. That's the thing about the Euros that makes it so amazing, though. It's like Andrea Sharvin in 2008.
Yeah.
You string together 2 or 3 good games and you're the man of the tournament.
Yeah, big move, Real Madrid will probably try and sign you.
Yeah, and you know, maybe that could be something for Patrick Schick, but I think they've got enough to edge out Denmark.
Right. but they do have a number 9, a central midfielder who wears the number 9, which is absolutely unacceptable.
It's better than William Gallas wearing number 10.
Yeah, anything's better than Gallas wearing number 10. Right, that's all we've got time for. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
You've been watching Football Trending, delivered by Joe and Domino's. See you next time.
You've been watching Football Trending, delivered by Joe and Domino's.